Okay, thanks for joining us, everybody, on today's investor panel webinar. Today, we're going to go through a Q&A with our lead investor, Adriana, and hopefully you'll find out a little bit more about Qnetic and the story behind the company, the product, and where we're going. My name's Mike. I'm one of the founders of Qnetic, and I'm the CEO.
My name is Loic. I'm French citizen, mechanical engineer, and I'm also the founder of Qnetic, and I am the CTO.
Hi, everyone. My name is Malcolm Matthews. I'm an American. I am currently the CFO at Qnetic, and good to meet all of you.
Matthias Mier. I'm located in Germany, joined Qnetic about 1 year ago, and mainly care about quality and supplier management.
So everyone, I'm Adriana Verde. I'm the lead investor in Qnetic. A little bit about my background. So my entire career, 14, 15 years now, has been in the domain of energy. Most of that in renewables, specifically in wind turbines. I do have a bit of experience with nuclear, but most of my experience has been within technology and engineering around renewables. I did start as an engineer and then took increasing responsibility roles in different wind turbine manufacturers in the US, Europe, and China, until I got to hold some executive roles like the one I have today, where I lead the mechanical engineering division for General Electric's onshore wind business unit. What we do a little bit, so my team is a global team of 150 plus engineers, and we develop the box that goes on top of the tower for the wind turbines and all the technology that is inside. I do love this industry. I do love renewables, of course, because of the purpose and the mission behind. But specifically about wind and renewables, this is a very immature industry, you could say, where there's a lot of research and technology going on. And that's also the reason why I love Qnetic.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we're really fortunate to have you on board as a lead investor. And I hope the rest of the investor crowd appreciate your background. But before we pass over to you, I've got one question to get things going, which is, first of all, why did you choose to invest in Qnetic?
So there are different reasons. The main one is the mission. I think you guys are really ambitious and we are aligned on the mission. I do want to transition as quick as possible to a green energy world. And I think you are targeting some of the key obstacles I see as an expert in the renewable energy that are hindering that transition. To be a little bit more specific, we don't have today proper working storage concept that is tailor-made for renewables and that is reliable and cost efficient. And I think Qnetic does address the specific for renewables, wind and solar in a reliable and cost-efficient manner. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll hand over to you. What do you want to ask us?
So, to start a little bit from the high level. So we've talked about the mission, right? It is a beautiful mission, and I do believe you have what it takes, but we need to be realistic. You are competing with huge companies with a lot of resources like Tesla, Siemens, and so on. What do you have that makes you be sure that you're going to be successful?
So thanks, Adriana, for the question. It's a good one. I've worked in big multinationals all my career, companies as big as United Technologies, Johnson Controls, that have been involved in very big industries. Most multinationals are focusing on a wide variety of things, and they're trying to solve a whole lot of problems for the world, depending on the products that they have. When you try to tackle a particular problem from a startup perspective, you have a whole lot more focus on solving that particular problem, even though you may not have the resources of a big multinational. It enables you to move faster because you can make decisions faster. You're able to gather the resources that you need to focus on that single problem and address it and get to a solution. This is where, companies like Uber that focused on a very single problem and solved it. Airbnb focused on a very simple short-term stay problem. So I think, yes, it's an ambitious mission. Yes, we are going against big multinationals, but We have focus, we have drive, and a whole lot more aggressiveness and urgency behind how we are pursuing it than the big multinationals may.
So now I'd like to understand a little bit more about your background and the history. So Mike and Loic, what led you to found Qnetic and why?
Or maybe I can start the answer, but I certainly want Mike to complete what I'm going to say, because it's a long story. So we are longtime friends with Mike. We've been working on art project together from 2016 in Shanghai. At that time, I was working as a mechanical engineer for Envision Energy. I was head of department doing simulation and test on the wind turbine, drivetrain, vibration, very exciting things. But the time passing, Envision changed culture a little bit, and that was not resonating with me anymore. So I decided to quit the company in 2021. And I went on the bicycle trip from Shanghai to Shangri-La, 6,000 kilometers alone. That gave me the opportunity to think about my future. And one thing I really wanted, and I realized it, is create a company. And Mike was the best possible partner I could find to build this company, because we are so aligned in a lot of things and the way we see the world. And we work well together. And Mike is probably the smartest person I know. So I really wanted to work with him. So actually, we agreed to start a company together. So while I was cycling to Shangri-La, he was in Shanghai building the company. Joined me the last week of my bicycle trip. He joined me in Shangri-La, and we came back together to Shanghai. And in the train, that's where we really founded the company. I mean, that's where we defined what would be the mission of the company and what we would do with Qnetic.
Yeah, so my perspective on that is that, when Loic and I started working together on such projects, what we found is that we had this outstanding ability to work together. We really enjoyed working together, and we found that our two heads put together were unusually capable of kind of solving problems and coming up with new ideas and really getting a kick out of the process as well. It's a very rare find. Maybe you come across somebody like that you can work with maybe once or twice in your career. So we're really lucky to find that kind of magic that would happen when we put our two heads together. So I was also at a point in my career where I was ready for something new and wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. And we decided together, let's harness what we have, and then apply this to a mission that we were aligned, both well aligned with, towards helping the future. So that's what we did. We founded the company, as Loic said. We just had a mission and a kind of a drive to do something that was going to be impactful for the future, and form the company around that. Really, the product came second, much later, once we started to apply our skill set to ask the question, what could we do with our skill set that would be most useful for the future? So where that led us to was really trying to solve the fundamental problem of our energy system. We have to decarbonize, and when we look at that, there is a solution. And if you like, if you can just imagine a future where all of our energy comes from a system where there's no harm to the planet from all the energy that we need in order to survive and thrive. And we don't have that yet. In fact, we're a long way from that. But what's interesting is that it's entirely tangible that we can get there. If we can basically electrify everything, and if we have solar and wind, then there's one missing piece in the jigsaw, which is enough energy storage to enable that transition to happen. So that's where we realized we had an opportunity to do something useful. So that's really what the company is all about. That's our purpose.
Great, and I love that. And that's one of the main things that made me invest full in this idea. And I think that's also what's driving a lot of our investors. I also want to comment on the fact that I didn't mention in my intro, but I've been involved with startups for a few years now. And one thing that is usually underestimated is the cohesion of the team, of the founding team. that is one of the best predictors for startup success. And that is also one of the things that made it so easy for me to invest in you guys, because I know you've been friends for a long time. You've collaborated in other projects successfully. And that is something that I would like our investors to know as well, that this predictor here is a strong collaboration track record between the two of you. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about Loic and Mike, but one thing that is also non-neglectable is the great amount of talent that you've been able to assemble here. Again, this is unlike most of the other startups that I've seen to have profiles coming from the industry, big corporates with high executive roles, leaving everything to collaborate with you and invest in you. So I would like to know a little bit about Malcolm and Matthias, a little bit about your background and why did you decide to give your full in to Qnetic?
Thanks, Adriana. I'll go ahead and take that first, Matthias. Interesting question. Anybody who cares anything about our planet would obviously care about the subject. But there's also the fact it doesn't matter if you really work in multinationals or in startups. You really want to work with great people that you believe and people that you know that you think that they know what they're doing and that they're going to succeed, right? Leaders like to hang around with other leaders. And this was, I met Loic and Michael at a casual coffee a year and a half ago, and I was instantly captured by their ambition and where they wanted to take this company. That's exciting. And not many people have that passion. And it doesn't matter where you work. You need to have passion to make something succeed. So I was enamored by it, and that's what led me to join them and get this mission to succeed.
Great. Thank you, Malcolm. What about you, Matthias?
Yeah, I do believe it's a little bit similar. After almost 40 years in leading roles in renewables, I more or less took the decision I would like to work only on things which really matters and only work with people I trust. And that's definitely the case here. When Loic approached me about 1 year ago with his very inspiring venture, I was very happy. I can see the market is huge. I trust the team. And the product is, from my point of view, surprisingly simple, but nevertheless very innovative. For me, it's a unique opportunity. It's the right time, right place. Me, myself, I like to be involved in an early stage. I love to do things right first time. Nevertheless, and that might also be helpful for the further development of a startup, I am very good in solving problems. So I'm very inspired, and still after 1 year cooperation, I love the team, I love Qnetic, and especially very much convinced about the product.
There are many different technologies available out there for storage and billions and billions of investment in these different technologies. What makes you and your product special?
Something we try to really focus on is grid scale storage. So to be able to empower and facilitate the transition to renewable energy. When we talk about grid scale storage, we need a system that is scalable, so that can be deployed everywhere and that can be deployed with resources that are locally sourced. That's very important. We need a system that is clean and safe, respect the environment, doesn't harm people. We need a system that is long-lasting, that can last the life of a wind turbine or a solar farm, which is 20 to 30 years. And we need a system that is low cost, because the goal is to displace fossil fuel at the end. That's what we want. So we want a system that has a cost lower than what we would find in burning gas equivalent, burning coal equivalent, right? So that's where we try to define the need for storage and a little bit guiding us into defining what would be the best storage.
So, there are a bunch of technologies out there, either established ones or things that are being developed. Honestly, we don't see a clear winning technology that satisfies daily energy shifting. So this term daily energy shifting, it refers to a specific specification, if you like, of energy discharge. So you need to be able to support the 24-hour cycle of demand and supply. Demand of consumers, of course, and supply of solar and wind. The two things vary over the 24-hour cycle. So the goal is that we can use variable renewable sources 24 hours a day on demand. So how do you do that? We need a certain type of energy storage. It can't just be anything. It has to be something that's capable of being cycled twice a day, and it needs to be able to continuously discharge for, say, 4 to 12 hours. That's really the parameters that we need to fulfill. So what's the technology for that? Well, it's actually a bit of a blank white space there. When we set about designing Qnetic, that's exactly what we wanted to fill, is that blank white space. So all the design decisions were driven by how we can store the most energy that we can for the lowest possible cost that we can, and enable it to be discharged with those number of cycles and that discharge duration that we need to support daily energy shifting. And as far as we're aware, we have the first flywheel energy storage system product that is intended for bulk storage of energy at grid scale. And honestly, that's the bit that Qnetic is doing, trying to answer that fundamental question.
Okay, great. So if I understand correctly, then you have developed a storage solution that is tailored to wind and solar, which no one else has done.
Correct. Yeah,
Correct.
that's right.
That's
we hope there'll be more products like our one coming along in the future. But right now, as far as we can tell, we're in the lead. And in a way, it's kind of like that's our secret that we're holding. And we've figured out that there's a product there that can satisfy that need. And we've figured out how to do it cheaply. And all we need to do now is get the progress as quickly as we can to bring that to market.
clear. So you mentioned flywheel, Mike. I mean, flywheel is not a new technology. Why? What is special about it, and why no one else has used it for this purpose before?
Yeah, it's a very good question. You're right. Flywheel is not a new technology, and there's lots of flywheel energy storage products on the market. And the typical application for those is for, let's say, backup power or UPS. And this is where you need something that is very high power, that can take over the power needs of a, let's say, a data center or a factory or something like that, for a very short duration while it transitions to like a diesel generator in the case of a cutout. So very high power, very short duration, and very small capacity. Now, what Qnetic is doing is actually the opposite of that. We're doing really high capacity, long duration, and relatively modest power, comparatively speaking. So there's quite a good metaphor that I can express for this. So if you think about a vehicle for transport, like what's the level of utility you want from this vehicle? So those existing flywheels, you can compare to, say, a sports car. Okay, it's very fast, high power, but you can't put much in it. You can't transport much. And then there are some flywheel products for the grid that get into the configuration more like a small van. Okay, so now it's for storage and it's for transporting stuff, but it can only just transport a relatively small amount of stuff. Now, what Qnetic is doing is developing a flywheel energy storage that's more like a huge truck. So we're carrying the maximum load that we can for huge distances. So long duration, high capacity, and moderate power. So that's what we're doing differently. So it's actually a totally different approach to existing technology. And the trouble is, with all those companies, they've already dug their trench. So if you take, to extend the car metaphor, if you wanted to ask Ferrari to build a lorry truck, okay, they'll have to start again from scratch and rethink all their engineering and rethink all their factory processes and this kind of thing. So right now we have, broadly speaking, close to a first mover advantage. And no doubt there'll be other companies coming along in the future, but right now we see a kind of clear runway ahead of us.
Yeah, that's great. No, I love the metaphor. And what I also really like is that you are taking some technology that is already proven, existing, and putting it in a different application with a twist, therefore reducing the risk of success for this project.
Matthias has a great line on this. He said, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to redesign it for bulk storage. And that really captures it.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about the product, and I'd like to know a bit about your approach to safety. So I've seen occasionally lithium-ion packs catching fire, making headlines. You are aiming at a huge amount of energy being stored. We've talked about not being a new technology, but it is a new size and a new application. So what can you guys tell our investors regarding safety?
Yeah, risk management, and it's not necessarily related only to safety, is one of my core competences, and that's related to life cycle risk management. So from the early design to the operation of the system. Qnetic is installed in the ground for intrinsic safety, but the worst case containment is only the last stage of a three-stage life cycle risk management, which starts with the design and life cycle FMEA, for example. The first stage is to avoid failures. The second one is detect deviation before the system fails. And only the last one, nevertheless important one, is to contain the consequences of any failures. And that's also one reason why I'm so happy to be in an early stage, because the early stage is the easiest to make it right in terms of quality and design, testing, product verification, prototyping, and so on. So we have a wide area to control safety from the very early beginning.
Okay, so I really like that. If I understand correctly, you are applying design for safety from the beginning. So you're applying a proactive safety issues avoidance philosophy. But what if worse comes to worse? What if something happens? What's your strategy there for containment? How are you addressing this?
Yeah, the final containment of unlikely catastrophic failure is that the system is buried into the ground. So whatever happened, and you are right, there is a lot of energy stored when we have maximum speed, and the, let's say, potential explosion is huge. But as the system is buried into the ground within a concrete shelter, we can prevent that the environment, neither next system, next unit, or anything else in the environment will be harmed.
Okay, so that's actually a great concept where you treat all potential safety issues in a proactive way. Worst comes to worst, something happens, we are underground, therefore there is no damage to infrastructure or personal damage potentially happening. Okay, this is great. That's a huge advantage compared to your main competitors out there. As far as I understand, there is an unmet market need, and you have a proven technology that you have managed to adapt rightly to fit that market need and be the first ones doing that. Now, this does sound a little bit too good to be true. There must be some challenges in that process as well. So can you, team, tell me what are the challenges that you're dealing with?
Yes, it's not too good to be true, but it's not completely proven either. I mean, one of the huge challenge we are facing, we're going to face some vibration and dynamics. We need to be sure the system is not vibrating. We need to predict how the system is going to behave in mechanical vibration, deformation, stress in the system, because we are going at very high speed. So the rotor is gonna deform, and it's gonna go to very high level of tension. So to be able to predict that and front load those kind of issue, we use cutting edge simulation. This is kind of my domain of expertise. I've been working for Siemens for 10 years on gas turbine, jet engine dynamics, on wind turbine powertrains, and then on leading a department in Envision Energy doing exactly that, trying to build the most accurate simulation models, verify it with test, and build, like, if you want, a digital twin of the wind turbine that you can rely to be able to predict what's going to happen. So it's exactly the same methodology we applying in the flywheel design. Is using those simulation methods and going step by step. Like right now, we have models that we use to predict how the system is going to behave. Our next step, and what we're going to do with the funding of WeFunder, is build a prototype to prove it's working, but mostly it's to prove our model are correct and to correct those models and make sure we can do the next leap with a sufficient accuracy so we can predict all the problems beforehand.
So I just want to add to what Loic was just saying. Really, as a company, we have like these four pillars making a really stable sort of platform for Qnetic. You know, we've got design, we've got engineering, we've got finance and business, we've got you know, supply chain and quality and risk management. So it's a really stable platform to develop the product. But hopefully what you can appreciate from what Loic is just saying is that, and, you know, to speak of Loic, that he's really the kind of genius behind the design of Qnetic and what it really contains as a product and as a concept. And with his skill set put together with the rest of us, we're actually perfectly put together team to develop this type of product. You know, there's other skills we're going to need in the future, but right now, going through the design and development stages, the sort of R&D stage of the product, we're ideally suited to this kind of product.
Great. So let's fast forward a little bit. We are in 2030 right now. You are very successful. How does the future of energy look like, and what role does Qnetic play in it?
Yeah, okay. Well, let me try and answer that. Like Loic said at the beginning, we like to, you know, think forward from the future and look back. So by 2030, if we look back, that means that Qnetic has successfully developed its product and we've got it into production. So the sort of vision that I have in mind when that's the situation is that you could imagine that outside of every town where the transmission lines come to a substation and then the electricity goes into the local distribution network, that there, outside every town, there's a Qnetic battery. So that comprises a number of Qnetic flywheel all connected together, providing the energy storage needs of entire communities. It makes sense to put the energy storage at the consumption side, because then you need to store the least amount of energy. If you put it on the production side, then you also have to store the energy that will then get wasted through transmission. So energy storage outside every town, Qnetic energy storage outside every town is really what I think that vision looks like. So that's the first thing. In terms of Qnetic as an organization, as we said earlier, we're trying to solve a global problem. You know, decarbonization and converting over to sustainable energy is a global issue. So the solution needs to be global. It means Qnetic is going to be a global company. We intend to have factories in Europe, in USA, and in China, all producing Qnetic flywheel for their local markets. And as a company, we want to maximize our impact on the world. So we really want to focus on getting the product out there in the world. So that means that those factories may be our own, they may be through third parties, through licensing deals, they may be joint ventures and so on. We're very open to exploring different opportunities. That means that we can maximize the potential of Qnetic.
Yeah, if I can add something on the 2030 perspective in the product side of it, we are aware that the solution we are providing today is relying a lot on the carbon fiber. And if we think about a Qnetic flywheel in every town, that means a huge amount of those fiber. In 2030, I hope that we will have overcome this problem by developing a better fiber or better material we can rely on for our rotor, a material that is fully recyclable, a material that is low carbon footprint, and that doesn't have the restriction that we have with carbon fiber in terms of cost. And we are starting this research on the special material already by collaboration with MIT that we are starting, and hopefully by 2030 it's going to be ready.
Awesome, impressive.
If I could add something else as well, and kind of from a long-term perspective, right? And you know, having been in finance most of my career, I do know what investors look for and interests of shareholders, right? As part of it is the vision, and part of it certainty of success to some level, but part of it is also making sure that you're able to get there responsibly and that you achieve your mission. So we have a very well-defined plan on going at it. And it's not about, we're not going to be able to build 100 units immediately. We have to test the product. We have to go and let our customers see it. And we have a plan for that. The initial WeFunder campaign really addresses funds that is going to be used to build a lab scale prototype, which will prove our concept, show that it works, and then we want to be able to show our customers that we have a working prototype in place that's going to meet the needs of what we went out there for it to be able to do. And that will enable us to go to the next step to build a full-scale prototype that we are then able to test in Germany, the US, and China, as Mike earlier mentioned. So there is a very well-defined development plan on this that will make sure that we're able to use the money responsibly and provide a return to our shareholders when the time comes.
So who will purchase this product and why?
I think Mike had mentioned it earlier. As we develop the initial product, it's really designed for grid scale application. I mean, that's the initial customer base. That's the problem we were trying to solve. So the customers for that may be state level grid, it may be developers, power producers, a whole host of governments that are out there that are looking to manage the power problem, right? But it doesn't mean that it expand from there. We're looking at alternatives where the products may be more suitable to big industrial firms or large campuses, et cetera, that may have similar kind of needs, and we're able to meet the cost and efficiency needs that they require. So it will go further, but that's our initial step. We have also talked quite a bit about the business model and where we can go from just selling a product to getting into managing it, monitoring it, to making it recurring revenue. These are initial thoughts that we have in place that we will expand on further as the company develops.
So yeah, if I can add to what Malcolm just said, energy storage is a market that is growing exponentially. It's doubling every 3 years. There is room for everyone, and there is room for everybody, at least until 2030, to prove the technology. And if we can prove our claim in terms of cost and in terms of technology efficiency, then we will have a market share for sure. On top of that, we can see government driving a push for developing technologies in this area with grants, with easy access to money. And that's something that is really hopeful. We can see other actors getting some funding to develop technology. So that gives us a lot of hope in also having access to this kind of grants ourselves. And yeah.
So, Adriana, let me just mention something that I think many people listening will be curious about, because we get this question a lot. We tell people about Qnetic, and then they say, I've got solar on my roof. Can I stick this in my basement? Well, in theory, yes, but Qnetic actually, the energy stored and the power of Qnetic is enough to power a whole community of 500 homes. So it's not really practical, but you could use Qnetic for on-site storage for commercial and industrial customers. And actually, we have a potential for a product that's at half scale that will be even more flexible for that kind of application. So that is one possible further use for Qnetic, apart from the grid scale application.
So you mentioned that your mission is energy security. Can you develop a little bit on that?
Yes, with great pleasure. So energy security is really about every state being able to develop the energy independence, right? Right now, it is clear that the development of renewable is a necessity, solar, wind, and probably nuclear. On the storage side, having a solution that can be sourced locally is very important to enable this energy security. And we can see, for example, on the lithium-ion battery, that the material is sourced on very specific mines that are then transported in China to be able to manufacture in cell and then assemble into big batteries everywhere in the world. But it's really relying on very specific supply chain, and that not really compliant with the idea of energy security. Well, our system is relying on materials that we can supply almost everywhere. It's basically the same supply chains as wind turbines. We are using steel, we are using carbon fiber, we are using metals, generator, and etc. The only specific material we are using is permanent magnet that we source from China. So it's very strategic for us to be implemented in China to be able to source that until we get access to an alternative we can source from somewhere else. So yeah, this is a big advantage of our technology with respect to energy security supply chain.
I love that. I love how you are contributing to decentralization of the grid. So thanks all of you. I've learned a lot from Qnetic today. I love the product. I believe in the product addressing a very present need in the market. And yeah, I wish you all the best. Do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you, Adriana. It's very nice to have you on the call today. If I could close myself on that, I'm personally very grateful to be working in Qnetic and have the opportunity to try to solve probably the biggest challenge humankind has ever faced, which is climate change. And yeah, I think it's a unique opportunity. We are living in an era that is unique in this way, that we are facing this kind of challenge, and we are seeing so much disrupting technology like AI development or capacity to modify our own genetic code. And this, I'm very grateful to be alive in this era, and I'm very happy to work towards a better future.
Yeah, from my perspective, just from a curious, if I could talk for a second about people. So I've been a part of many successful organizations, and what has made them successful is the people that are in them. It's great to be part of a group of people. I mean, I come from a background of being an executive in a big corporation. Matthias has a tremendous amount of experience in renewables and quality. Loic and Mike, awesome engineers. And it's amazing that we get together and there's not an ego in the room. It's us sitting down and trying to figure out a very important global problem. It's an exciting place to work, and I have no doubt that we'll succeed. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adriana. And I think my closing remark, really somewhat following on from Malcolm's comments, is that I think for a lot of investors, when they're looking at startups, they're really, especially our type of company where the first chapter of it is all about design and development. It's kind of an R&D company at this stage. They're really looking at the people involved. And I guess on that front, my message to the investors is that as far as I'm concerned, the team that we have here is prepared to do whatever it takes to get our product out in the world, because we believe in the product and we know it's going to make sense for the market and fulfill our mission. So with that, it's time to wrap up. So thanks everybody who tuned in to listen to our webinar. Really appreciate the time. Hopefully it's answered some of your questions. If you do have any further questions, then by all means, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll be happy to discuss further. So thanks a lot for your time. Bye-bye.